Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Ryan, and you're listening to Speak Up, the podcast where we talk about real problems and simple ways to grow your English speaking skills. Today, we're diving into something we've all felt at some point, that nervous feeling when we try to speak English. Why does it happen? Why do so many of us feel scared, even when we know the words? We'll explore that today. And trust me, you're not alone. Even fluent speakers felt the same way once.
Hi, everyone. I'm Priya, and I'm so happy you're here with us today. Whether you're just starting or you've been learning for a while, this episode is going to hit home. Here's something to think about. Have you ever stayed quiet just because you were afraid to speak English out loud? If yes, then this episode is for you. Let's talk about where that fear comes from and, more importantly, how we can break it step by step.
So let's first understand this. What does the fear of making mistakes really mean? Well, for most English learners, this fear is about one thing. What if I say something wrong? It could be wrong grammar, wrong pronunciation, or even just using the wrong word, and that little fear becomes a big wall. Imagine this. You're in a group, and you know what you want to say, but the moment you open your mouth, you start thinking, wait, is this sentence correct? And then you just stop. You say nothing. That's the fear of speaking English because of mistakes. And it happens more often than you think.
Yes, and the sad part is, this fear makes people stay quiet even when they do have the words. I've seen it in my own students. They start a sentence with confidence, but the moment they make a small mistake, maybe they forget the S in likes or mispronounce a word, they stop, get nervous, and say, sorry, my English is bad. But here's the truth. Mistakes are normal. Every learner makes them. Even native speakers make them. The real problem is not the mistake. It's the fear around it. This fear grows when we think everyone is watching or judging, but most of the time, no one really cares.
Exactly. And here's something to remember. You don't need perfect English to speak English. The goal is to communicate, not to be perfect. I mean, look at how people learn their first language. As babies, we make tons of mistakes. We say funny things, wrong things, but no one laughs. Everyone encourages us. But when it comes to English, especially as adults, we suddenly feel pressure to speak like a professional. That pressure creates fear. And fear stops progress. So if you're afraid of making mistakes in English, just know that fear is common, but it doesn't have to control you.
And the best way to fight that fear? Start speaking, even with mistakes. Let the mistake happen and just keep going. In fact, when you make a mistake and someone corrects you kindly, that's a good thing. That's learning in action. But sadly, many learners are too scared to even try. They wait until they think their English is perfect. And that day never comes because perfection doesn't exist. So the idea is, speak. Make mistakes. Learn from them. That's how you grow.
Here's a quick tip I always share. Treat mistakes like feedback, not failure. If you say, he go to school, and someone gently says, he goes to school, you've just learned something new. That's progress. The mistake helped you get better. So don't let that fear stop your words. Even if you pause, even if you struggle, keep going. Remember, the more you speak, the less fear you'll feel. You are not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be learning.
Absolutely. And if you ever feel embarrassed, remind yourself, everyone started somewhere. Even fluent speakers were once afraid too. And here's a little secret. Many people will respect you more for trying, even with mistakes, than for staying silent. So next time you're about to speak and that little fear shows up, take a breath, smile, and speak anyway. Your voice matters. Your English matters. And mistakes, they're just part of the journey.
Now let's talk about something else that causes fear. Low confidence in vocabulary and grammar. You know that moment when you're trying to say something but you just can't remember the right word? Or you're not sure if the grammar is correct, so you just give up? That's what we're talking about here. This is a big reason why people stay quiet. The lack of English vocabulary creates hesitation, and the more you hesitate, the more nervous you feel. It's not because you don't know anything, it's just that in that moment your mind goes blank. And that shakes your confidence.
Yes, it happens a lot. Many learners tell me, I understand English, but I can't speak it. And most of the time, it's because they're afraid of using the wrong word or wrong sentence structure. They start thinking, is it did go or went? Should I say have or has? That doubt, that tiny bit of grammar fear, creates a block in their mind. And once you start thinking too much about grammar rules while speaking, the sentence just disappears. That's what we call English grammar fear, and it's totally normal, but it can be fixed.
Right. And here's something learners need to hear. You don't need big words or perfect grammar to be understood. Simple words are powerful. Short sentences work. If you're trying to say, I'm very hungry, but you forget the word hungry, just say, I want food. It's okay. People will still understand you. The problem is, we think we need perfect vocabulary to speak, so when we can't find that perfect word, we stop speaking. That's not helpful. It's better to use simple words with confidence than to stay silent waiting for the right one.
Exactly, Ryan. And here's a helpful trick. Use what you know. Don't focus on the words you don't know. Focus on the words you do. Let's say you forget the word comfortable. You can say, this chair feels good to sit on. Yes, maybe it's not the perfect word, but it works. The more you speak with simple words, the more confidence you build. And slowly, new vocabulary will come. It's not about memorizing a dictionary, it's about learning naturally through real practice.
Also, reading and listening help a lot. When you listen to English daily, podcasts, short videos, or even English music, you start picking up new words and sentence patterns without even trying too hard. You'll hear how people speak, and that will give you ideas when you talk. It builds your vocabulary without stress. So if you feel stuck because of a lack of English vocabulary, don't worry. Just keep exposing yourself to the language. The confidence will grow slowly but surely.
Yes, and I always tell my learners, don't be afraid of small words. They are your best friends. Speak with the words you have today, and tomorrow you'll have more. And grammar? It improves with time. You don't need to get every rule right today. Just focus on sharing your message. You don't have to be a grammar expert to be a confident English speaker. The goal is communication, not perfection. And your confidence starts to grow the moment you stop waiting and start speaking.
Let's now talk about something a lot of people quietly struggle with: the fear of being judged or laughed at. This is a huge reason why so many learners avoid speaking English, especially in public. It's not always about grammar or vocabulary. Sometimes, it's just that English-speaking anxiety kicks in the moment others are around. You start thinking, what if they laugh at my accent? What if I sound silly? And suddenly, your voice disappears, even if you were confident a minute ago. That fear of speaking English in public is real, but it's also beatable.
Yes, Ryan. And what's sad is, most of the time people don't laugh or judge, but we imagine it in our head. We create this pressure that I must speak perfectly or people will make fun of me. This fear stops people from joining conversations, from asking questions, from even ordering food in English. I've seen students freeze in class just because they think someone might laugh. That's how powerful this fear can be. But the truth is, most people admire you when you try to speak another language. They respect the effort.
That's such an important point. People who laugh or judge usually don't speak English well themselves, and their opinion doesn't matter. But the good people, they'll listen. They'll help. I remember a learner who told me, I don't speak in meetings because I'm afraid I'll say something wrong and everyone will think I'm stupid. That broke my heart. No one should feel that way. English-speaking anxiety grows when we keep quiet. But when we speak, even a little, we take back our power.
Exactly, and sometimes the fear comes from past experiences. Maybe someone laughed once, maybe a teacher corrected you in a harsh way. And that one moment stays in your mind for years. But here's the truth. One bad experience doesn't mean you're bad at English. It just means you're human. You can always start again. Speaking English in public might feel scary at first, but with time and practice, that fear fades. You just have to give yourself permission to try.
Here's a small tip that helps. Start small. Speak English in front of one friend, then two, then maybe at a small group meeting. You don't have to jump straight into big crowds or live videos. Even speaking to yourself in the mirror is a good first step. The more you speak, the more confident you'll feel, and the less you'll care about judgment. Your fear of speaking English in public will slowly turn into pride that you didn't give up.
And don't forget, no one becomes fluent without making mistakes in front of others. Even confident speakers today once felt nervous and awkward. The difference is, they didn't let that fear stop them. So next time your heart starts racing and your hands get cold, take a deep breath and speak anyway. You are learning, you are growing, and you deserve to be heard. With your voice, your accent, and your words.
Now let's talk about something that quietly damages confidence, comparing yourself to fluent speakers. It's so common, right? You hear someone speaking fast English with perfect flow, and suddenly you feel small. You think, I can't speak like that. I'll never be fluent. That English fluency comparison is dangerous because it's not fair. You're comparing your beginning to someone else's middle or end. They've had years of practice. You're still learning, and that's okay. You don't need to sound like a native to speak English well.
That's true, Ryan. Many learners tell me, I want to speak just like native speakers. But that pressure, that fear of speaking like a native, actually slows them down. They stop speaking because they feel their accent isn't good enough, or their grammar isn't perfect. But here's a reminder. Fluency doesn't mean perfection. It means being able to express yourself clearly and confidently, even with mistakes. You don't need to copy someone else's style. Your voice is enough.
Exactly. And here's something learners often forget. Everyone has a different English journey. Maybe your friend speaks better because they've been watching English movies since childhood. Or maybe someone else lived abroad for years. That doesn't make you less smart. It just means your path is different. Instead of focusing on how fluent someone else is, focus on how far you've come. When you stop comparing, you start growing.
Yes. And I always say, don't let someone else's success make you feel like a failure. Use it as inspiration, not as pressure. If someone speaks well, great. That means it's possible. And you can get there too, in your own time. Remember, even native speakers make grammar mistakes sometimes. The goal isn't to sound like them, or the goal is to be understood and feel confident. And you're already on the way.
Also, think about this. The person you're comparing yourself to probably had fears too. They weren't born speaking English fluently. They practiced, made mistakes, and kept going. So when you feel that comparison pressure, remind yourself, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to keep speaking. It's okay to speak slow. It's okay to pause. What matters is that you don't stop speaking.
Exactly, Ryan. Progress is personal. Instead of comparing your English with others, compare it with your past self. Were you afraid to say hello a year ago? And now you're having full conversations? That's growth. The real fluency is confidence, not copying someone else's voice. So speak proudly, with your own accent, your own speed, and your own journey. Because your English is part of who you are, and it's enough.
Let's talk about something that holds many people back from speaking. Bad past experiences with speaking English. We've all been there, right? One mistake, one harsh correction, and suddenly, we're afraid to speak again. Maybe it happened in a classroom. The teacher corrects you loudly in front of everyone. Or maybe you made a mistake while speaking in public and people laughed. That English speaking fear experience can stay with you for years. But here's the thing. One bad experience doesn't define your ability to speak English. It's just part of the learning process.
Exactly, Ryan. I've seen so many learners who are scared to speak because of one embarrassing moment. I had a student who was once laughed at for mispronouncing a word during a presentation in class. After that, she refused to speak English for months. It was heartbreaking because she had the potential to be a great speaker. That experience stuck with her, and it made her fear speaking in public. But overcoming English speaking fear starts with forgiving yourself and not letting that one moment control you.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I remember my own first speech in English. I stumbled over every other word, and people didn't seem too patient. But guess what? I didn't give up. I realized that making mistakes is just a natural part of speaking any language. Sure, it hurt to be corrected, but I used it as motivation. Instead of running away from speaking, I kept trying. And today, those past mistakes don't feel so bad.
It's amazing how one negative experience can affect your confidence so deeply. But you know what? We have the power to turn things around. Think about this. Even native speakers have embarrassing moments. They've all mispronounced words, made mistakes in conversations, and felt embarrassed. The key is how we respond to those moments. When you face those fears, you learn to laugh at yourself, not take it so seriously, and just keep going.
Exactly. And what I always tell my students is, don't let that bad experience stop you. Every time you speak, you're getting better, even if it doesn't feel that way right away. You may not speak perfectly today, but think about where you'll be a year from now. Every little mistake is a step forward. The more you practice and push past the fear, the less that past experience will control you. In fact, it'll become a funny memory that you can laugh about in the future.
And here's a tip. When you're afraid to speak, start with a safe space. Talk to friends or family who support you. No one's going to laugh at you and you'll feel much more confident. You can also practice in front of a mirror or record yourself. The more you speak, the more you'll see how much progress you've made. That past fear will lose its power. And soon, you'll be speaking without hesitation. You've got this.
Let's dive into another common barrier for learners: overthinking while speaking English. It sounds familiar, right? You start a conversation, and suddenly you're thinking about every word you say. What's the right word? Am I saying it correctly? You end up freezing, unsure of what to say next. This mental block in English speaking is something a lot of learners face. It's like your brain is stuck, overthinking every sentence, and that stops the natural flow of conversation.
I completely understand, Ryan. I've seen it happen all the time. One of my students would literally stop every few seconds to think about the next word, and you could see the frustration on his face. It's such a common problem. The fear of making a mistake leads to overthinking every sentence. This causes a mental block, and before you know it, the conversation stalls. You start worrying so much that your brain just can't keep up with your thoughts. But here's the trick. It's okay to make mistakes.
Yes, and when we overthink, we lose the chance to be spontaneous in our conversations. We don't need to speak perfectly. The goal is to communicate. I've had moments where I've totally blanked out during a conversation, but then I remind myself, it's okay. No one expects you to sound like a perfect speaker. And when you let go of that pressure, suddenly, the words start coming more naturally. Overthinking only builds walls between you and real communication.
Exactly. It's all about getting comfortable with not knowing the perfect word right away. When we're overthinking while speaking English, we get stuck on trying to say things exactly as we've learned them in class or in textbooks. But conversations don't work like that. People speak in short sentences, they skip words, they get creative with language. When you let go of that perfectionism, you unlock the ability to speak freely. Don't worry if you don't remember the right word at first. You can always find a different way to express it.
That's such an important point, Priya. And here's something that helps. Practice without thinking too much. Try to have a conversation where you don't stop to think about grammar or vocabulary every second. It's okay if you get something wrong. Just keep speaking. The more you practice without the constant worry, the more fluent you'll feel. And in time, that mental block will disappear.
Yes. So when you feel yourself overthinking, take a deep breath. Don't let the pressure of speaking perfectly control you. It's perfectly fine to pause for a moment, but don't let the pause turn into panic. Even if you forget a word, you'll find a way to express your thoughts. And that's the beauty of language. Remember, speaking English is about sharing ideas, not about perfection. Once you let go of overthinking, you'll find your natural speaking flow.
Finally, let's talk about something that is a game changer: daily speaking practice. If you're not speaking English regularly, it's easy to build up more fear and nervousness. It's like any other skill. The more you practice, the better you get. If you don't practice, you're likely to feel anxious the next time you try. Practice speaking English daily isn't just a suggestion, it's essential. Even small habits, like talking to yourself or repeating phrases, can help. The more you speak, the less that fear will control you.
Absolutely, Ryan. I always tell my students that English speaking practice should become part of your daily routine. It doesn't have to be a long conversation, but speaking for just 10 to 15 minutes a day can make a huge difference. You can start with simple things like practicing your favorite phrases, ordering food in English, or even describing your day. Over time, you'll get used to the language and it won't feel as intimidating. The key is to keep practicing regularly so that speaking becomes second nature.
Right. And one of the best ways to build confidence is to make speaking a habit, not a task. Use your day-to-day activities as an opportunity to practice. For example, if you're cooking, describe the steps in English. If you're watching a TV show, try repeating the dialogues. It doesn't need to be perfect, just consistent. Before you know it, you'll be more comfortable speaking, and that fear will fade away.
Exactly. One trick I love is finding a speaking buddy, someone who also wants to practice. You can do short daily conversations with them. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, it'll make a huge difference in building your confidence. If you don't have anyone around you to speak English with, you can practice online too. There are so many apps and platforms where you can connect with others. The more you speak, the less nervous you'll feel in real-life situations.
Exactly, Priya. The lack of daily speaking practice is what keeps a lot of people stuck in their comfort zone. But once you make a habit of speaking, even in small moments, you start to break free from that fear. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes. What matters is that you're speaking and improving. So let's stop overthinking and start speaking. The only way to get better at speaking English is to practice speaking it.
Right, so let's wrap up by reminding everyone. Daily practice is key. Start small, keep it simple, and slowly build your confidence. You can practice in your free time, with friends, or even on your own. The more consistent you are, the more comfortable you'll become. And soon, speaking English will feel natural, like second nature. Thank you all for joining us today, and remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Just keep speaking.